So my name is Alex. I was born in 1989 in Ukraine. It was formerly the USSR. So where I was born in Ukraine, it was close to Russia. So me and my family, we speak Russian. So and we're also Jewish. So we're Russian-speaking Ukrainian Jews, so to speak. So we came to America in 1995 or 1996, somewhere around there. I was 5 or 6 years old, and I was an only child. And for Russian immigrants especially, I see this as an ongoing theme. There's no such thing as a child that just doesn't do anything, or just does one thing. So pretty much every week or every month, every couple of weeks, I would be trying something new. So I actually tried pretty much every single sport there is. So I was on a basketball team, I was in a ping pong club, I was on a tennis team, I was the only Jewish person on Our Lady of Grace Catholic baseball team. I was there for like a few months. I did painting for a number of years. So out of all of these things that I tried, actually the physical ones I wasn't too interested in. I was actually interested in a lot of the painting and the drawing. I took lessons weekly, and one summer I was just bored, and my parents, they threw me into a judo camp, and it was a Russian judo camp. And the judo I didn't really enjoy as much as I enjoyed the games, and I enjoyed just interacting with the kids and just being part of the camp. So I was in the judo camp, and a little bit before the judo camp, however, I was also tried karate for a couple of years too. So I was literally all over the place. In high school, I decided that I needed to join a club. I wanted to do something extracurricular. And my high school, actually, we had probably the top wrestling team of Brooklyn. It was a really good wrestling team. It was the Franklin Delano Roosevelt wrestling team. But I always thought it was a little funny. I was like, man, wrestling kind of like the singlet. I kind of looked at these guys. I was like, yeah, I don't really want to do that. It looks a little funny to me. And I joined the art club. So I was actually in the art club, and I was there a lot, and I loved it. I started to kind of stray away from the positive art. I was getting a little bit with the graffiti and things like that. But just all, just kids play. But then, I had an accident happen to me where I broke my back. My L1 and L2 spine was a compression fracture. And so for 6 months I didn't go to school, and for 6 months I stayed home. And I was in a cast, and it was like kind of like a negative period of my life, because I didn't really get to interact with anybody. I was just home all day. And then after that, I was like, I really want to go back to something that I did in my childhood. And the first thing that stuck to me was the judo camp, because I really loved it so much. So I was like, oh, let me do judo again. And then what happened was I called my coach, my old coach from 5 or 6 years ago when I trained with him. And he told me, he's like, listen, you're like, what are you, 17 now, 16? He's like, I'm going to be honest with you, I only have like kids, I only have like, the oldest kid I have is like 12, 13. So, I was a little disappointed. I was like, man, I really wanted to train judo again. But then I always watched UFC with my dad. So I was like, oh, judo and jiu-jitsu, it's kind of similar. So I Googled Brazilian jiu-jitsu, found a small local school, and then, just walked in one day and then fell in love. And I was actually like, after I broke my back, what happened was I pretty much lost all my friends. Because my friends, everybody was into like graffiti, they were into like, all these like, things that are maybe illegal and things like that. And I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. So I kind of like lost all my friends. I had no friends, and I would go to the gym by myself every single day. And I didn't really know what to do, so I would just lift a lot of weights, and I would be eating a lot, because I always loved to eat my whole life. So I was actually 185 pounds, and I was like, in powerlifting, that's what I was on YouTube, searching powerlifting, trying to be a power lifter, and I was like kind of fat. And then just within a few months of jiu-jitsu, I lost like 20-30 pounds, and then I just kind of fell in love with it. And then from there I just started my martial arts journey. Really started after that, I would say.
Nice and calm, nice and calm, nice and calm. Make all the grips to go up good.
So actually the first martial art I started was Goju-Ryu Karate. And it's interesting because recently, now that I'm working in this field myself, I decided to try to research my teacher and find out more about him, and he kind of just disappeared. He was a very interesting guy. His name was James, and he lived in the dojo. He was like a long-haired guy, and he was like the epitome of like a martial arts character from a martial arts movie. He was just like really peaceful, really strong guy, older, but very fit. He lived in the dojo, gave everything to his students, and I don't think he made much money, unfortunately, so that's why he was forced to shut this dojo down. and now there's like no information about him. Like he never had a website, and I don't remember his last name, so I only know his first name, so I can't find information about him. But the reason I even started karate was because me and my dad, we would bond over martial arts movies. So, I saw Bloodsport, and like as soon as I saw it, it's so funny how like childhood experiences, are so important to everybody. People have like childhood traumas and stuff like that. So this for me was the opposite of a childhood trauma. This for me was like my childhood thing that, made me, I think, who I am today. Like I saw the movie, and right away, that's it. I knew this is like, subconsciously, I think I knew this is what I wanted to do, because even though I was like doing all these other things and trying these other sports, I always loved fighting. Like I would always watch boxing, I would always watch UFC. On ESPN, I would always be watching like the karate demonstrations, like anything to do with martial arts, anything to do with wrestling, like professional wrestling, even WWF, I would always be interested in. And so as soon as I saw Bloodsport, my father, I was like, that's it, I gotta do karate. But then that's the funny thing. So I was never good at karate. So I still remember till this day, I was a green belt with a brown stripe. And but I couldn't do push-ups. So James, he's like, you're not gonna get your brown belt unless you can do like 10 good push-ups. And I just, for the life of me, couldn't do it because I was like a chubby kid. And like the kata, the sparring, like I was not too bad, I think, but I couldn't do push-ups. I was so unathletic, and just eventually I stopped going. I started to do more art. I started to do other stuff. I even tried chess, and kind of strayed away from that. And then a couple of years later, that's when I started with in the judo camp. And again, the judo camp, I was also really unathletic, and I just liked the interactions with the kids. I never really even liked judo to begin with. But my judo teacher, one time he forced me to do a judo tournament. And I remember I must have been like 11 years old, and me and my mom, we drove to this school where they had an in-house judo tournament. And I just remember sitting in the corner by myself. Everybody, all my friends were around, like joking around, and I just remember myself like just shaking, and like I just couldn't even move. And then finally my name was called, and I just got up, I shook hands, and then I lost right away. Like right away I just got demolished. And then like as soon as that happened, I sat back down, and I think I kind of collected myself, and then I got called again. And then somehow I went out and I threw the guy. And the funny thing is, my coach was joking about this. I threw him with a ogoshi, it was a hip throw, and I never even did ogoshi in regular class. So in this tournament, I kind of somehow got this throw that I never did, before. So in that tournament, I think I got like second or third place because of that, and I was like so happy. But it was like, it's not something that I wanted even to do. Like I was actually forced to do it. And in my judo school, like if you wanted to advance belts, you had to compete. And not only did you have to compete, you have to win. So like if you wanted to get your yellow belt, you had to win 2 tournaments. And I never won 2 tournaments, so I never even got a yellow belt or anything like that, even though I did judo for a couple of years. And then when I started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I already had a couple of years of this judo, a little bit, I remembered some things. So I decided, just to have some fun. So one time, me and my friend, we just signed up for a big sambo tournament. And it was like a big sambo tournament, but even though for America it was big, it was actually very small. There was not too many people because sambo is not very popular. And in that tournament, like I had no sambo experience before, but I won 2 fights and I lost 1. I actually lost my first one, then I won 2 more, and that was a great experience. But then the funny thing is, jiu-jitsu tournaments, I would never win. I would always be losing, and then it took me some time to like develop my style, and Shin and Laurel, they helped me a lot. Like they told me like what to do and things like that, and it took a long time before I won anything. Like so the jiu-jitsu system, it's white, blue, purple, brown, and black. And I never won a tournament until I was a purple belt, and it was like in the end of my purple belt career. Before I would get like 3rd place once in a while, and then I would just never win at all. And then at brown belt, I started to do a little bit better. So that's a little bit of my journey from starting by shivering and not being able to even speak to how I started to excel in the martial arts. In the beginning, I would lose a lot, and then I started winning, and then like I was thinking about it, like why did I like lose a lot, and then why did I start winning a lot, and I couldn't really figure it out, and then I think it all boils down to just like believing in yourself, and like I always knew, even when I lost, like I was like so upset and stuff like that, but I always knew like I could do better, and I would always try to like think, what can I change for next time? And I would sometimes write down, lessons of my matches, and like what went wrong, what Shaolin told me, what I should have done, and I would always kind of like look back at these things and then try to really think it through. Like it's almost like, a lot of people, they say jiu-jitsu is like chess. Some people say it's not like chess, but I think there's some similarities and differences. But one big similarity is like after a chess game, you can sit down and kind of analyze your game. Like what happened? Like, oh, I messed up on move 32, and then it all went downhill from there. And you can say the same thing in jiu-jitsu. Like, man, I messed up as soon as I let the guy grab my head. Or I messed up as soon as I let the guy get the grips. So I would try to really always analyze these things. And then what I started to do is I would combine a lot of things. So I would combine things like Shaolin told me. I would combine the lessons that I learned. Then I would try to combine, things that I saw. So like I would see a move that I think would fit my game, and I would try to replicate it and do it over and over. Then I would try to do a move that Shin showed me and take principles from a lot of different people. Like I always thought, like taking, like I would imagine myself being at a salad bar, and the salad bar just has all kinds of different foods. And I would take a plate and I just kind of take a little bit from everybody, because I believe that every single person and every single school, affiliate, team, whatever, they have something nice to add. And I was never in favor of like being like, no, this is the only way. Like you have to do A, B, C, D, everybody else is wrong. Like I always disagreed with that concept. I liked more kind of like a stew. Like you just like, you taste it and like, all right, it needs a little bit more of something else. You add a little something else, you taste it again, all right, let's add something else. And the flavors can be from everybody. It can be from a video that you saw from one guy, a seminar that you went to, what your coach told you. And by the way, what your coach tells you, that's kind of the base of the stew. So that's the kind of the most important thing. But then it's nice to spice it up with different things that you kind of find along the way. And a lot of people would inspire me. Like there's even too many people to name, but I would always watch people and get inspired. And then, I started to develop like, some of my own moves. And, I don't know if I invented it or not, but, I started playing around with like things that I never saw before done. And I started just joking around, giving it names and stuff like that. Just, it's like inside jokes, in my academy. And then that's when I really got successful. I started to like do these moves in tournaments. And every tournament I would come into, I would have this huge confidence, because I would be looking at the person and I'll be like, all right, so me and him, we both trained equally hard, let's say, like, because I knew I trained really hard. I'm like, we both trained really hard. I'm like, all right, my coach is like, he's like a legend. He's like, I'm really, really amazing. Like, all right, his coach is pretty good too. All right, so we train hard. We both have really good coaches behind us. But I have like almost like a secret weapon in my back pocket. I'm gonna do a move that I'm pretty sure he doesn't know about. And this would give me this kind of confidence. And as soon as I would start the match, like I would try to right away get into my position. And I would just try to do it over and over and over again, and until like I would get it. And then my success started to like build up. And the move, I gave a name, G-roll. And actually I just released an instructional on it, to kind of just, give it away, it's because I got to get better myself, because, I don't want to plateau and just keep doing this move and be a one-trick pony, and I've been working on new stuff as we speak, but that's pretty much what happened. And, I really enjoy jiu-jitsu. Like, I love, like, the whole process. Like, I read a book recently, Iron and Silk. And in this book, Iron and Silk, it's a book about a Western guy going to China to learn Chinese martial arts. And this book was given to me by a good friend of mine. And in this book, there was one quote that like really stood out. And the quote is, as soon as the student, he went to learn from the master asked the student, he said, "Are you ready to eat bitter?" And the student didn't really understand what that meant. He was like, what does that mean? And he's like, you gotta like enjoy the bitterness of training. Like, training is not fun. Like Muhammad Ali said, like he hated every second of it, but he got through it so he can become a champion. But like the bitterness, like you got to be a little bit sadistic, in my opinion, to enjoy martial arts. Like you got to really enjoy like almost being smashed. You got to enjoy being exhausted. You got to enjoy like wanting to give up. Like a lot of times I catch myself like, man, I could just stand up, put my clothes back on, and walk out of the gym. I could just do that, but I enjoy knowing that I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna push myself through the motion, and like sometimes I do like crazy things. Like I'm walking to training, and I specifically walk on streets. And in New York, it's 9th Avenue. It's like an avenue where a lot of restaurants. And I love walking on this avenue, and I love seeing that everybody is like drinking alcohol and eating like cheeseburgers and eating a lot of food. And in a weird way, it's like I have a pleasure out of watching them and knowing that I'm gonna go to train while instead of doing this. And guess what? I have the 20 bucks in my pocket. I could easily sit down next to them and enjoy a beer and a burger that I enjoy just like they like anybody else. But it's kind of like this weird feeling that you have knowing that you're doing something better for yourself and that you're actually suffering to do it, and that suffering is very pleasurable. So I really like, that's the big thing that I enjoy about competition, because the whole reason to suffer is for this competition, because yeah, you could suffer and stuff like that, but then if you don't have like an end goal result, like you don't have a specific date, the motivation is sometimes not there. Like if I tell you like, oh, in 2 months you have a tournament and like you only have 2 months to prepare, you're gonna get like everything together and you're gonna make sure you're on top of it. But if there's nothing in the books, all right, tomorrow I'll train, and then you don't take it as seriously. So I believe that tournaments and fights and all these things are very nice ways to prepare yourself for the suffering during training, to better prepare yourself to be a stronger fighter. The history of Shaolin that I don't know if everybody knows, that's very interesting, is he's one of the first like Brazilian Jiu-jitsu guys, like straight Brazilian Jiu-jitsu guys that trained exclusively in the gi, to really start to train in wrestling and really incorporate wrestling and incorporate like judo stuff, like takedown stuff into his Brazilian Jiu-jitsu. Like Shaolin is very open-minded, and like the moves that he would always do were always like, he was always like cutting edge. Like he would always be trying to do new stuff and always try to add new things to his game, which is why in MMA he was so successful in the beginning. Like a lot of jiu-jitsu guys, like they're like really high-level jiu-jitsu black belts, they go into MMA thinking that like their jiu-jitsu is enough, and they get a rude awakening because they're on the bottom and they start to get punched, and all of that jiu-jitsu kind of goes out the window. Where Shaolin, he would always use his jiu-jitsu combining with his wrestling. So he would make sure he would take the guy down, and then after that he would impose his jiu-jitsu on the guy. So he figured out a way to use his jiu-jitsu in an efficient and a smart way, not in a way that he gets abused and just gets pounded on, and then maybe 10 minutes in the fight he gets finally an armbar. Yeah, that's jiu-jitsu, but it's a little bit smarter to do it in the way that he approached it. He trained a lot of wrestling, and like personally when I train with him, that's the biggest trouble I have, because like his wrestling is so good and his jiu-jitsu is so good. A lot of times, if I'm passing his guard, I feel like I got a pass going, and I'm defending all his jiu-jitsu sweeps. Boom, he catches a single leg out of nowhere. Or if I sprawl on the single leg, boom, he goes under me, goes to deep half guard. So he really knows how to combine them really, really well, and that's what makes him like such a dangerous fighter. And I always respected that. So like recently, it's funny, I had a conversation with my friend, and he was like, yeah, so are you gonna be doing like jiu-jitsu like forever? And I was like, no, I'm gonna be doing jiu-jitsu. I love jiu-jitsu, but man, I want to do Muay Thai, I want to do MMA, I want to do some other stuff. And he told me, he's like, I always looked at you like you're just like a guy that just likes to go out there and just likes to fight or likes to compete. And I thought about it and I was like, yeah, that's kind of true. I just kind of like being active. I like just testing myself, and like if I had the time, I would go to like a karate competition, I would go to a judo tournament, like if I had the time to devote myself. Like I think like all the martial arts are good, and that's one thing I like about Shaolin and Laurel, for example, too. Like I've never heard them bash any other martial arts. Like they pretty much respect all the martial arts, and guys that come to train with us like from different styles, they're always respected. Nobody's ever like looked down upon. Like the biggest thing in jiu-jitsu that like I don't like is when jiu-jitsu guys become elitists. They're like, oh, we are the best and those guys are the worst. That attitude, it's gonna get you humbled one day. And like jiu-jitsu is great, but man, I've seen like really strong wrestlers come in and just like smoke some purple belts. And hey, it happens. If like you have a good base, if you tuck your arms, tuck your chin, hide your legs, and just smash the guy in the top, yeah, the guy's gonna have a lot of trouble. Like jiu-jitsu is not like a magic antidote. And another thing that I struggle with, besides the jiu-jitsu elitists is, the really rich people that like think that like money buys anything. Like money buys a lot, but money will not buy you heart. It's not gonna buy you technique. Like, you can spend all the money in the world, buy all the instructionals, fly all over the world to do all the seminars. You can switch from one school to the next and train with every single instructor. But if you don't got it, you don't got it. You know, jiu-jitsu and martial arts, it's a skill that money cannot buy. And like a lot of guys, like, you know, they fail. So like for example, they start in one school, and you know they don't get that good. They never look at themselves. They always look at like that there's something wrong with the teacher, or there's something wrong with somebody else, and then they jump ship to another school, and then again that happens, and then they jump ship again, and they just keep going. And like they gotta like sometime like sit down and like realize maybe it's not the teacher, maybe it's like you gotta fix something in yourself before you can fix something in the teacher. Sometimes, you know, the school is not too good and there's a better school, it works out better, and for convenience purposes, logistics, you transfer schools. That's fine, you know, but if you just keep jumping over and over and over, you know, that's when it looks kind of weird, because, you know, it's like you're like, and, you know, it's impossible to satisfy you. Like, you can't find what you're looking for. So I remember in high school, I was at a parent-teacher conference, and my science teacher, I just like failed the class. Like, I was never a really good student, and I did so terrible. And me and my mom, we like sat down with the teacher, and my mom was thinking of transferring me to a different school, because she was like, yeah, maybe this school is not for you. And this teacher was so wise, and he's like, as soon as we told him this, like my mom told me, like, oh, I'm thinking of transferring Alex, what do you think about that? He was like, listen, if Alex is like misbehaving here, if he's not studying here, what makes you think he's gonna do that in another school? Like, he's gonna do the same thing he's doing here, he's gonna do it in another school. So you gotta fix the problem, and then after you fix the problem, then yeah, you can transfer schools and etc. And I think that's a lot of guys in jiu-jitsu don't do. So they don't understand that it's their work ethic, that it's their commitment, that it's their discipline that needs work. They think that they got that when they don't, and they think the problem is other things. And then when they transfer schools, they still don't have the discipline, they still don't have the work ethic. They're still sloppy. So yeah, they're still not gonna get the results that they want. But in other cases, it sometimes works differently, because, you know, sometimes like let's say you live in 10 miles away from the school, and there's a school closer to you. Okay, maybe it's going to be a little bit easier for you to go there, and then you're going to be able to spend more time on jiu-jitsu, and yeah, maybe your jiu-jitsu is going to improve. So in some cases it's worth it to switch schools, but, you know, in a lot of cases, like if you're not achieving the results that you need to achieve, you got to look like inside yourself. And it's funny because like there's a school, I'm not going to say the name, but the teacher, like I never looked at him like very highly. I thought he was good, but I never like looked at him as like he's one of the world's best practitioners or teachers. But man, this guy produced some of the best students. Like some of his guys were just killing it, like at like high levels too, like at purple, brown. He even has like some black belts that are good. And then we have like world champion black belts, and their students are just getting smoked. So a lot of times it doesn't have to do with like the credentials of the teacher, his like fighting credentials. Freddie Roach, he was never an amazing boxer, but he's an amazing teacher. So it has more to do than who, you know, what resume your coach has. You know, that's important. You know, you want to have a coach that fought also, but like you got to look past that. So you got to see, do we have a chemistry together? Do I understand what he's saying? Does he understand what I need? And these are some of the things that you need to do when you want to switch a school, or if you want to think about staying at your school, or things like that. I actually used to work more at the front desk in my school, in Shaolin school. And I remember one time I was, showing the guy the prices for the classes and stuff. And some people, they can buy 20 classes, 50 classes, things like that, just in case they don't want to sign up like months a month. And this guy, very funny guy, very nice guy, he came up to me and he goes, okay, so I think I'm going to take the 20 classes, but he goes, after the 20 classes, I'm going to be proficient in jiu-jitsu, yeah? And, I was like, man, from the salesperson, I got to make sure, that, he doesn't just, walk out right now, but, I got to tell the guy the truth. So I told him, I said, man, listen, the honest truth is this, no, absolutely not. Like martial arts, like you can't like limit, like at 100 classes, you're gonna become this, which is why many schools that grade you based on like attendance is like I disagree with. So it's literally, it's so corny, but it's true. It really is a lifelong journey. you can never stop training. Like, yeah, you can take a month off. All right, you got an injury. You can take 6 months off. You have an injury, but you always have to come back. It's just like working out. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger, if he stopped working out and for 6 months, yeah, he would not look the same. Yeah, he could get back to where he was, but it would take some time. Same thing in the martial arts, and that's what a lot of people get frustrated with. Like they come and go, they're inconsistent, and like that's what they struggle with. For myself, like I know, and by the way, before I continue, that guy did sign up. He understood what I was saying, and he was like, "I'll buy the 20 classes, and I'm gonna keep coming." And he was a little bit on and off, but he really enjoyed the training. Like for myself, like I know it's like not even a question. I know I'm going to be training something for the rest of my life. I don't know if it's going to be Jiu-jitsu every day. I don't know if it's going to be Muay Thai, if it's going to be MMA. It's going to be something. Like I really appreciate even like the Tai Chi people. Like I think for like older people, like Tai Chi, it's so amazing, so beautiful. It's like kind of like moving yoga, and like I would love to do that like a little bit later. Just the time. The issue now is the time. Like there's not enough hours in the day, and there's not enough hours to recover. And you got to make a living, so it's impossible to train like 6-7 different martial arts for 3 hours a day. But eventually, like my dream is to just be able to do everything, and my dream is to be similar to my first karate teacher, where I would even like live in the gym. I would not mind that at all, and people could come over all the time, train with me, and I run an open mat at Shaolin's. And this is like one of my favorite things that Shaolin made. So he made it accessible for everybody. Like there's a lot of politics in Jiu-Jitsu, but there's no rules at this open mat. Like we can have like rival teams come in and everybody comes in. And a lot of people, like today, we have an open mat just before this interview. And we had a guy from a rival school teaching somebody from our school things that they learned there. And then another person from another school asked one of our guys how to defend against the move that I like, the G-roll. So they were like, "Oh, how do you block the G-roll?" And like the guy showed him. So it's kind of like all these like things that could be looked at as like we're rivals and stuff. We're actually working together. So I think that's really cool because at the end of the day, that's how everybody's gonna get better together. I think like having like rivalries and having cliques, you're not gonna be able to achieve as much as if you work together. Now, that's not to say that rivalries and competitions are not good. But the way I see it, it's like kind of like two brothers having a rivalry to see who can run quicker. They're not gonna kill each other. They're not gonna try to like hurt each other in the run, but they push each other to both become better. So that's kind of the small vision I see in martial arts. I really hope that people could trade together more. And it's funny because after I started Jiu-Jitsu, I started to do Judo as well. And I still did Judo on the side from Jiu-Jitsu as a supplement. And one time I went to the NYAC, the New York Athletic Club, and they were hosting a Judo seminar with Ole Bischoff. He was an Olympian, and he was an amazing Judo guy. And Ole, after the seminar, he invited like the French Judo team, like a B or C level Judo team, and the Japanese like B or C level Judo team, and everybody like they trained together. And what I didn't mention is the day before they competed against each other. So one day they fought against each other, next day they trained with each other. So like that is like so open-minded, and like in my opinion, that's why like these guys are who they are. Like that's why they travel halfway across the world to be able to compete, and people come to watch them. And I believe like the people that just like stay in their own little house, never leave their home, and they're like so cliquey, like they only get so far, because like it's very hard to be well-rounded without having an influence of outside other people. So I know with me, I'm influenced by so many people, and I hope to continue to be influenced in more than just Jiu-Jitsu, more than Muay Thai. I do want to try other martial arts, and the more I look at other martial arts, the more similarities I see, because the human body, there's only so many ways that you can move it. The arm moves in only so many different directions. So like a karate block like this, it's similar to a Krav Maga block. It's similar to, if somebody's trying to get a grip and then you try to deflect their grip. It's all connected in the end, and that's what makes it really beautiful. So that's why I want to explore other things, and in the end, it's going to just make everything better. In pretty much everything that you do, just martial arts, even past martial arts, you want to be as professional as possible. You don't want to be known as an amateur person. You don't want to be known as amateur at your job, amateur in your relationship, amateur in anything that you do. Even simpler things like that. You don't want to be known as just like an average guy. You always want to be known, or average girl. You always want to be known as a professional in everything that you do. In Russian, the direct translation is you want to be known as like a correct person. Like you do everything correct. So what does a professional baker do? So if the it's raining, it's snowing, does the baker say, oh, it's raining, it's snowing, I'm not gonna go to my bake shop today, I'm just gonna have it closed? No. Rain, shine, snow, he's sick, she's sick, they're not sick, whatever the circumstances may be. If it's physically possible for the baker to be in their bakery, they're gonna be there 4 in the morning. They're gonna wake up and they're gonna make sure they're gonna bake for the day. You wanna make sure you have this kind of mentality in everything that you do. So like whatever excuses you may have, like, today I'm a little bit hungry, so I'm probably not gonna do that well in training, so I'm gonna skip training. Wrong. If you think to yourself, oh, my elbow hurts a little bit, I'm a little bit injured, I'm gonna take off, a month off of training to make sure it heals. Wrong. You have to be professional. You have to stop making excuses, and you have to be persistent. You gotta show up no matter what. Like, you have to do your work. Like, all excuses have to go out the window. Like, if you have excuses, everybody has excuses. Every single world champion had days, and many of them, where they did not want to be in the training room, where they wanted to walk out, where they wanted to quit, but guess what? They were persistent. And the people that are persistent, the people that are there day after day after day, they're the ones that are successful. There's no secret. The secret is just persistence, and the secret is being a pro. You want to be a professional. You don't have any kind of distractions or things that make sure that you don't do your job. Like, you can always find time to do things. Like, I had an argument with a person once, and the argument was this. They were like, yeah, if I get a full-time job, and I have a family and kids to take care of, like, I'm not gonna have time to go to the gym. Yeah. So it's okay for me to become fat. And I disagreed with the person completely. I said there is gonna be enough time for you to have to take 30 minutes out of your day and work out. You can do, if you really want to do it, you're gonna find the time to do it. If you don't do it, that means you don't want to do it. If you don't want to do it, you're not a professional in it. If you're not a professional in it, it means you're an amateur in it. If you're an amateur in it, it means that there's really no reason for you to do it. All right, so if there's no reason for you to do it, yeah, then you're going to be on a decline. And guess what? You don't want to be on a decline. You want to be on the incline. And on the incline, it means you have to push through that voice in your head that says, don't do it, and you have to do it anyway. And many, many times, like, I don't want to be there. Like, I would much rather be doing something else, but I tell myself, no, professional has to stay and get their job done. Like, if there's a deadline, you have to, no matter what, like, you got to get it done. And people do this in their, computer programmers do this, people in finance do it. So if they do it in those fields, you got to do the same in martial arts and in the health field as well. Like, you got to, like, if you're having like troubles with your weight, like, you got to stop eating bad. You just got to cut it out. Like, abstain from it 100%. And you can't just like keep making excuses in your head, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna just for a little bit more, because that's just gonna keep you going down. It's not gonna help you go up. It's not to say that if you have a serious injury or you can't enjoy a good meal once in a while, like, there's always gonna be an exception to the rule, but you don't want to make it a habit. You want that to be like 1%, and you want the 99% to be of you being a professional, like being like on top of your game. And as long as you're there, like, good things are gonna happen to you. I strongly believe that. Like, the guys that I see with good results are the guys that never give up. And it's easy to say, it's hard to do, but that's what you have to do.